A biker kicks a blind man's German shepherd as a joke, not knowing the dog is a police officer. A visually impaired man was enjoying his coffee alongside his faithful partner, Apollo, when the biker came to taunt them. But what he didn't know is that Apollo was a special canine unit. What was about to happen would shock everyone. On a serene morning in the Brisas neighborhood, under a pristine blue sky, the sidewalk in front of the Tranquility Café bustled with people peacefully savoring their morning drinks. Seated quietly at an outdoor table was Samuel da Costa, a visually impaired man who frequented the cafe daily. At his side stood the ever-vigilant Apollo, his loyal German shepherd, whose alert posture hinted at a purpose far beyond that of a simple guide dog. Having served for many years as part of an elite K9 unit, Apollo carried himself with an upright stance and an imposing presence that spoke volumes of his rigorous training. Dedicated to Samuel's protection, Apollo not only offered the practical guidance his owner needed, but also forged a deep, affectionate bond built on trust and care. As Samuel calmly enjoyed his steaming coffee, the roar of 3 motorcycles shattered the peaceful ambiance. The bikes parked near the cafe, their thundering engines immediately capturing the attention of everyone present. 3 bikers dismounted, clad in leather jackets adorned with flashy badges and insignias. Despite their casual appearance, their calculated gazes and decisive steps injected a palpable tension into the scene. Rafael, the group's unmistakable leader, exuded authority with a booming laugh and animated gestures as he spoke with his companions, making his intention to dominate the environment clear. Ever watchful, Apollo's ears perked up at the unusual disturbance. The 3 men began to walk among the tables, scanning each face with a critical eye. Raphael's gaze landed on Apollo and Samuel. "That's some dog you've got there," Raphael commented, causing Apollo to fix his piercing gaze on him. Laughing at his own remark, Raphael leaned in slightly, as if to gauge Apollo's reaction. Though the dog didn't move, his firm posture sent a silent but potent message. Determined to prove a point, Raphael made an extravagant gesture with his hands and asked in a playful tone, "Is he really as tough as they say?" His companions chuckled uncomfortably as the tension slowly mounted. Apollo kept his unwavering gaze on Raphael, while Samuel, oblivious to the growing attention, asked softly, "Is everything all right?" His voice, though calm, held a trace of apprehension, as if he too sensed the shift in Apollo's demeanor. Trained to act under extreme pressure, Apollo knew it was crucial to maintain his composure until the precise moment to act. Not getting the reaction he wanted, Raphael backed off for a moment, but his laughter soon echoed again. Still not fully grasping the situation, Samuel reached out to stroke Apollo. "It's okay, buddy," he said. In response, Apollo shifted subtly closer to him, never breaking his intense stare on Raphael, whose bravado was beginning to feel the weight of his own actions. By the time Samuel finished his coffee, the atmosphere in the small outdoor space had taken on a restless energy. The laughter from Raphael and his group now had a provocative edge. Apollo, remaining faithfully by Samuel's side, was now in a state of high alert. His muscles tensed, and his eyes meticulously tracked Raphael's every move, as if anticipating an imminent threat. He was no mere pet. He was a guardian, prepared to defend his owner at any cost. Heedless of the growing audience, Raphael approached Samuel's table. "You've got a very handsome dog, don't you?" he remarked, his tone light but laced with a subtle disdain. Samuel offered a restrained smile. "Thank you. Apollo is my best friend." Raphael tilted his head with feigned curiosity. "Apollo, huh? Like the sun god. Let's see if he lives up to the name." Before Samuel could reply, Raphael reached out to touch Apollo's muzzle, a gesture that, to onlookers, might have seemed harmless, but was enough to trigger the dog's sharp instincts. Instead of reacting aggressively, the faithful dog pulled back and emitted a low, menacing growl. The air grew heavy, and an uncomfortable silence fell over the tables. "Easy, boy," Raphael said, raising a hand as if he were just playing, though his eyes glinted with a subtle challenge. Still not fully understanding the gravity of the moment, Samuel rested a hand on Apollo's neck to calm him, murmuring, "Sorry if he startled you." Raphael let out a nervous laugh, clearly offended by the dog's reaction. His companions immediately began to taunt him. "So, Raphael, you going to let a dog put you in your place?" With that provocation, the mood shifted dramatically. Eager to reclaim his image, Raphael shot a determined smirk at Apollo and glanced quickly at the gathering crowd. Many were already recording the scene with their phones. Though a flicker of hesitation crossed his eyes, he quickly dismissed it, stating coldly, "Relax, everyone. It's just a dog." But Apollo knew the difference between an innocent game and a real threat. Even though Samuel couldn't see, an unsettling feeling began to take hold of him. In a low voice, he asked, "Apollo, do you sense something is wrong?" The dog's fixed stare on Raphael was an answer clearer than any word. Raphael took a few steps back, but his retreat was only for show. His friends continued to provoke him, feeding his wounded pride. He paused, staring at Apollo as if challenging him to make a move. The tension in the air became almost palpable. Unaware of the malicious gazes and the imminent threat, Samuel tried to ease the situation with a mild comment. "He doesn't like to be crowded. Maybe that made him nervous." Raphael ignored him, glancing at his cronies and then at the onlookers, as if seeking silent approval for his next move. With a cold, calculated smile, he advanced again and reached out his hand. Apollo, remaining seated, let out a low growl, a subtle but unmistakable warning that made some of the spectators flinch. Determined to test Apollo's courage, Raphael exclaimed with forced enthusiasm, "Come on, big guy. Let's see if you're as tough as you look this time." Before Apollo could react, Raphael lightly kicked the side of Samuel's chair. In the blink of an eye, Apollo rose with fluid, determined agility, signaling that his limit had been reached. Though he didn't lunge, his entire posture changed. His body coiled like a spring about to be released. The murmur from the crowd grew louder, and several people started filming the escalating scene. Noticing the sudden change in Apollo, Samuel frowned and ran a hand over the dog's neck, trying to soothe him. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his concern now evident. Raphael laughed nervously, as if he knew he was playing with fire but refused to back down in front of his friends and the watchful eyes. "It's nothing," he replied dismissively, trying to placate Samuel. It was then that a determined woman nearby stood up and declared firmly, "You need to stop this. Leave the dog alone." Her authoritative voice echoed across the sidewalk, and for the first time, Raphael hesitated, feeling the weight of the crowd's disapproval. Apollo didn't move, but his gaze remained locked on Raphael, ready to react to any sign of danger. The tension hung in the air like a taut wire. Raphael narrowed his eyes at the woman who had confronted him, but remained silent as the crowd exchanged uneasy glances between him, Apollo, and a now thoroughly confused Samuel. Taking a cautious step back, Raphael insisted, "Hey, we're just having some fun," trying to save face but feeling an uncontrollable need to assert his dominance. Meanwhile, Apollo watched every movement with surgical precision, as if anticipating his next step. Samuel tightened his grip on Apollo's leash and murmured, "Apollo, please calm down. What is happening?" Even without being able to see Raphael's threatening posture, the charged atmosphere was undeniable. Apollo was no ordinary dog. Trained to protect, he was now on maximum alert. Samuel trusted him completely, yet the rising tension sparked a silent fear within him. The surrounding crowd seemed frozen in an anxious silence, intensifying the sense of impending danger. Suddenly, Raphael feigned a retreat, but in a swift, impulsive motion, he kicked a nearby chair, sending it sliding toward Apollo. The metallic scrape of it hitting the ground echoed down the street, causing some onlookers to gasp. In an instant, Apollo dodged the chair with impressive agility, and his growl deepened, issuing a resolute warning that no more provocations would be tolerated. A woman nearby shouted with authority, "Stop that right now!" A few others joined in, pleading with Raphael to cease his actions. But trapped by his own pride, he retorted with disdain, "What's your problem? Never seen someone play with a dog before?" His tone was light, but his clenched fists betrayed his inner tension. Apollo remained motionless, his intense gaze fixed on Raphael, as if measuring every nuance of his movement, prepared to act at any signal. Finally, Samuel slowly stood up, holding Apollo's leash firmly. "Can someone please tell me what is going on here?" he demanded. His voice, now filled with genuine worry, cut through the crowd's murmur. Before anyone could answer, Raphael strode toward Samuel, leaning in menacingly as if to impose his will. The onlookers held their breath, caught in an expectant silence. As if understanding the direct threat to his owner, Apollo lowered his head slightly in a protective gesture, ready to defend Samuel at all costs. The tension peaked as Raphael moved even closer, his presence becoming oppressive. "What's the matter, friend? Hiding behind your dog?" Raphael sneered, his weak laugh failing to hide his own discomfort. Samuel, though his voice trembled slightly, remained calm. "Apollo never leaves my side. He's my guardian, and it seems he senses a danger that I can't yet see." Gradually, Apollo's low growl intensified, and the murmur from the crowd grew louder, showing the general disapproval of Raphael's attitude. An elderly man sitting at a nearby table finally intervened. "This has gone far enough. You should leave before something truly terrible happens." Spurred on by his wounded pride and the goading of his friends, Raphael ignored the warning, glaring at the old man as if he were just another obstacle. Suddenly, a commanding bark from Apollo erupted, startling Raphael and making him recoil instinctively. It was a sound so emphatic it left no room for argument, making it clear the dog was prepared to act. The onlookers reacted with a collective shock. Noticing Apollo's firm bark, Samuel understood the situation had escalated. "It's all right, Apollo. I'm okay," he said, trying to calm his companion. But Apollo's fixed stare on Raphael sent a different message. In a final desperate attempt to save face, Raphael impulsively lunged forward and tried to shove Samuel by the shoulder. In the blink of an eye, Apollo interposed himself between them, his teeth bared in a silent warning that the matter was now closed. The street fell into absolute silence. Raphael froze, unable to react. Samuel, now fully aware of the gravity of the events, declared firmly, "I think you had better leave now." The murmur of the crowd turned against Raphael, who, realizing he had lost control, backed away slowly. His friends silently followed, and they disappeared around the corner. What had begun as a routine morning had quickly become a scene of whispered judgments and palpable tension. Even without his sight, Samuel could feel the drastic shift in the air. The distant rumble of engines faded, replaced by the hushed tones of people discussing what had just happened. Apollo remained faithfully by his side, his tense posture and a slight tremor in his legs a constant reminder that danger could still be near. Kneeling to stroke Apollo's fur, Samuel murmured, "It's okay now, boy." But the dog's unwavering stare, fixed in the direction Rafael had gone, suggested the threat had not been fully extinguished. Tenderly, Samuel caressed Apollo's muzzle and whispered, "You sense something I don't you?" The simple words carried the profound weight of the bond that united them. As the crowd began to disperse, a few curious onlookers remained. The woman who had intervened earlier approached Samuel, her voice trembling with leftover adrenaline. "Are you all right?" Samuel nodded slowly, though worry creased his brow. "I am, but Apollo, he's never reacted like that before. He knows when danger is near, and that scares me." The woman crouched beside him, studying Apollo. "This dog, he's truly exceptional, isn't he?" A mix of pride and melancholy colored Samuel's sigh. He was. An elite dog, trained to protect and serve, and, if necessary, to sacrifice everything. I thought that chapter of his life was over. But he's not just my guide now. He's my family. The woman's eyes remained on Apollo, as if trying to unlock the secrets of his past. "Perhaps," she murmured, "he never forgot who he really is." An elderly gentleman, another who had stepped in, came closer. His voice was deep and filled with a quiet wisdom. "Listen, son. Dogs like Apollo have instincts that go beyond our understanding. His reaction was no accident. You need to trust him and stay alert. That fellow, Rafael, he isn't the type to give up easily." Samuel absorbed the advice, his hand tightening gently on Apollo's leash. The dog met his gaze with an unexplainable understanding, as if to say that things were about to escalate. The moment of introspection was broken by the distant growl of engines. No motorcycles were in sight, yet their presence was unmistakable. Samuel ran a hand over Apollo's back, thinking, maybe it's just my imagination. But the subtle tremor in the dog's body suggested otherwise. Little did Samuel know, this incident was merely the prelude to a much greater challenge, one that would test Apollo's unwavering loyalty and his own courage in the face of the unknown. Even as the tension in the air seemed to dissipate, it remained coiled in Apollo's watchful stance. Now resting at Samuel's side, his breathing was still quick, his eyes constantly scanning, alert to the slightest movement. Feeling it was time to leave the cafe, Samuel rose slowly, offering a nervous smile to the few remaining onlookers. "Thank you for staying. I think Apollo and I could use some fresh air," he said, starting his journey down the bustling sidewalk. The usual walk home, a ritual that had always brought comfort, now carried an unfamiliar weight. Every step was marked by the rhythmic patter of Apollo's careful paws and the soft jingle of his collar, a constant reminder that danger could be lurking. Upon reaching his modest apartment, Samuel unclipped the leash, allowing his loyal friend to move freely. "You're on a different level today, huh, pal?" he commented, heading to the kitchen for Apollo's water bowl. The dog moved slowly through the apartment, sniffing every corner as if conducting a thorough inspection. Finally, he came to a stop by the front door and sat, quiet and still, his ears pricked, listening for any sound from outside. Samuel frowned. "What's going on, Apollo? This isn't like you." Sinking onto the simple sofa, Samuel replayed the morning's events. He recalled the stories he'd heard about Apollo's past as an elite K9, a dog who had played a crucial role in high-risk situations, saving lives with his sharp instincts. Now, it seemed those instincts were reawakening. "Are you trying to tell me something, my friend?" Samuel asked, gently stroking Apollo's soft fur. The dog responded with only a slight wag of his tail, his eyes remaining fixed on the door. Almost imperceptibly, the distant whine of a motorcycle echoed in the air, and Apollo's body went rigid. Samuel hadn't caught the sound clearly, but he felt his dog's reaction. Drawing strength from his companion's certainty, he laid a comforting hand on Apollo's shoulder and whispered, "No matter what happens, we're in this together." He had no idea how soon that silent promise would be tested. As night fell, wrapping the neighborhood in a comforting quiet, Samuel sat at the small dining table, methodically slicing an apple while Apollo rested at his side. But the tension from the morning still hung in the air, a silent, inescapable weight that neither could ignore. His fingers grazed lightly over Apollo's fur. "Maybe I'm overreacting, right, boy?" he murmured to himself. Apollo's ears twitched, but his watchful eyes remained locked on the front door, as if sensing something imminent. The peaceful silence was shattered by a distinct and growing hum of engines. The sound grew louder, closer. Instantly, Apollo was on his feet, his body taut, his gaze fixed on the door. "What is it, Apollo?" Samuel asked, his voice calm but laced with concern. The engines cut out abruptly, plunging the world into a heavy silence that pressed in on the thin apartment walls. Samuel reached for his phone, his fingers trembling. "Stay calm," he told himself, though his heart was hammering against his ribs. A moment later, a firm, deliberate knock echoed through the apartment. Apollo let out a low growl, planting himself squarely between Samuel and the door. After a brief hesitation, Samuel stood, gripping Apollo's collar tightly, and cautiously approached. "Who's there?" he called out, his tone firm and wary. There was no immediate answer, only a muffled murmur from outside. Samuel's pulse quickened. He could feel Apollo's tension through the collar, a coiled spring ready to be released. "I'm not opening the door until you tell me who you are," Samuel declared. Finally, a deep, vaguely familiar voice replied, "Relax. It's just Rafael." The name sent a chill down Samuel's spine. Apollo barked sharply, his growl deepening. Tightening his grip, Samuel took a step back from the door. With a voice heavy with suspicion, he demanded, "What do you want?" Raphael's tone shifted, attempting a casual air that was betrayed by a veiled threat. "Just wanted to talk. No hard feelings about what happened, right?" Samuel hesitated, his mind racing. Apollo, ever vigilant, remained poised. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, until Samuel finally spoke, his voice resolute. "You need to leave." The murmuring outside grew louder, followed by the sound of retreating footsteps and shuffling noises that slowly faded into the night. Yet, neither Samuel nor Apollo relaxed. The unsettling feeling lingered, like a storm gathering just over the horizon. The tense calm that followed Raphael's departure proved to be short-lived. Samuel began to pace the living room, his fingers tracing the familiar surfaces of his furniture as he tried to quiet his racing thoughts. Apollo, just as restless, moved to the window. His powerful frame remained tense as he sniffed the cool night air and stared into the darkness. "What is it, Apollo?" Samuel wondered aloud, a deep sense of unease settling in his chest. Minutes later, muffled, deliberate footsteps began to circle the building. Apollo let out a sharp bark, his body stiffening as if ready to launch. Samuel's heart pounded in his ears. With trembling fingers, he picked up his phone and dialed 911, whispering, "Stay calm," even as every fiber of his being screamed otherwise. Apollo moved to the door, his low, steady growl an emphatic warning that reverberated through the small apartment. Samuel's voice shook as he connected with the emergency dispatcher. "There's someone outside my apartment." Gripping Apollo's collar as the dog's growls intensified, he added, "I think they're trying to cause trouble." The dispatcher assured him that police were on their way, but every minute felt like an eternity. Outside, the footsteps grew closer, more deliberate, until a faint scraping sound against the window sent a shiver down Samuel's spine. The scraping stopped abruptly, followed by a muffled curse from outside. Apollo barked again, with more force this time, pressing his body against the door as if daring the intruder to come closer. Samuel, his resolve hardening, backed into a corner, his mind a storm of anxiety and helplessness. He trusted Apollo's instincts, and he prayed for help to arrive in time. "They're coming, Apollo," he murmured, keeping his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Hold on." Then, the distant wail of police sirens cut through the charged silence. Instantly, the footsteps outside ceased, replaced by the sound of someone fleeing. Apollo remained on high alert, his growl softening only slightly. Samuel let out a shaky breath and whispered into the phone, "They're here. Thank you." A wave of relief washed over him, mingled with the stark realization that this was far from over. Rafael had crossed a line, and Samuel braced himself for what might come next. A short time later, flashing red and blue lights bathed the street in a surreal glow as two police officers approached the apartment. Apollo, ever watchful, stood by the door, ears pricked and body tense. Samuel opened it cautiously, the cool night air a shock against his skin. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice firm despite his lingering fear. Apollo's gaze darted into the shadows outside, as if sensing the danger was still there. The officers asked Samuel to recount every detail, taking careful notes as he described the confrontation with Rafael and the unsettling sounds around the apartment. He admitted no physical action had been taken, other than his tight hold on Apollo's collar. "He's unpredictable," Samuel confessed, "and I'm afraid he'll be back." One of the officers knelt to pet Apollo, but the dog remained on alert, his eyes scanning the perimeter. "Your dog's instincts are exceptional," the officer remarked. A search of the area revealed fresh scuff marks near Samuel's window. Following the trail, they found no sign of Rafael or his companions. "He's likely long gone," one officer speculated. They advised Samuel to stay inside, keep his phone charged, and call immediately if anything else happened. They promised to increase patrols and suggested that, if he felt unsafe, he should consider staying somewhere else for the night. After the police left, a heavy silence settled over the apartment. Samuel sat on the edge of his bed, while Apollo lay at his feet, ever vigilant. He ran a comforting hand down the dog's back. "I don't know what comes next, Apollo," he murmured, "but I know you'll be ready." At that, Apollo's ears twitched. For the first time all night, his tail gave a faint, tentative wag, a small but significant sign of reassurance in the midst of uncertainty. Samuel eventually fell into a restless sleep, while Apollo remained a steadfast guardian at the door, a living barrier between his friend and the world outside. The bond between them, forged in the heat of shared fear and mutual trust, had never felt stronger. Whatever Raphael planned next, Samuel knew one unshakable truth. He would not face it alone. Apollo was more than a guide dog, more than a former elite K9. He was a guardian, a loyal partner, and a living testament to the strength that comes from standing together in the face of adversity.